Hello everyone and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, episode 29, the show where we keep you up to date as to everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host Nick Serpa, joined today by Nicolas Shade.
Hello everyone, happy to be here.
And we've got Dennis Gagliardato.
Hello, hello.
How's everyone doing?
Good.
Playing some good games?
Good. Yeah,
Staying
trying to play as much as possible. But yeah, a lot of, as we get into the holiday season, there's stuff now that's in every corner. So
Yes.
it's hard to keep up with it all, especially in a meaningful way, because you want to play all of them, right? But at the same time, it's like, you don't want to play all of them 5 minutes at a time. You want to play you want to invest a lot of time into each one, but that's very hard when there's like 30 games coming out a week.
Yes,
so.
and when 15 of them are Square Enix RPGs. Yeah, it's
That's
impossible.
Right. That's right.
Well, we definitely have a lot of announcements to talk about this week. And towards the end of the show, we are going to be talking about Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope, so stay tuned for that. But before we get into all of that, I wanted to start with something just interesting that has happened this week. One of the many blessings of YouTube is that we now have Sakurai's YouTube channel. And he has just been dropping tidbits of games he has worked on multiple times a week, I want to say. Like, he's put out videos pretty frequently. When Sakurai announced he was going to start his YouTube channel, I was expecting like a video every 2 months, but no, he's like more consistent than like quote unquote some real YouTubers who I watch.
Yeah, he's been going to town. I wonder if this is because he's talked about many times how he's wanted, well, maybe not wanted, but he's like clearly in the mood to retire anyways, So I wonder if this is just like a sort of like backup thing where he can just kind of relax and just sort of share his wisdom and his, knowledge with other folks while still having a source of revenue that way, but in a more casual environment. Yeah.
I think he mentioned he's not actually making any money off of it because he's having to pay all the editors and translators and everything. So it's just a passion project.
I think he did say that. Yeah. Anyways,
sorry.
We learned this week. No, it's good. This is good podcast conversation. In his latest video, first of all, we almost didn't get the original Super Smash Brothers. He said that when he was working at Nintendo, after he launched Kirby Superstar, he was working on 3D games, and he proposed 2 games. One of them turned into Super Smash Brothers for the Nintendo 64, and the other one was an RC robot adventure game where you hack into security cameras. And that little tidbit alone had me wondering what would happen if we'd gotten the other game. Like, if that would be the one that everyone was gathering at people's houses to play. And
who would have been the protagonist of the RC robot card game?
Well, I wonder if that eventually turned into something like Chibi Robo, but I have no idea.
Honestly, it sounds to me like Star Fox Zero, like those stealth portions, but...
Oh, maybe.
That too, yeah. Chibi Robo did come to mind, though, like when you had mentioned that. But I mean, it could be any number of things, really.
I don't know how involved he was with Chibi Robo, but yeah, so that was kind of, the origins. We almost didn't get Super Smash Brothers at all. But it was really cool. He actually showed off prototype footage of the game. At the time, the game was called Dragon King. And if you haven't seen the video from Sakurai, definitely go watch it. My big takeaway from it was, now obviously this is a prototype, so the character models are all just these blocky figures. But it's crazy how much the gameplay that was shown in this prototype resembles like what we got in the original Super Smash Brothers. Like, obviously it's missing some of the flair, it's missing some of the style that came in the full release. That's just how game development works. But the roots were there, like from the basis of the idea, which is pretty cool. There weren't originally going to be Nintendo characters in this game. He said he had to like negotiate that with Nintendo because they didn't want them beating each other up in a video game, which is just like so funny to think about considering how big this franchise is now.
It's always interesting, I think, hearing stories like these, because I think you never know. Sometimes people have ideas that they think will be small, and you never know how, what's going to become of it, years down the line, depending on and how people are going to react to it, right? So hearing stories like these, where here's a game that may or may not have happened that ended up turning into the juggernaut that is Super Smash Brothers, this franchise that has sold tens and tens and tens of millions, it's insane. But those stories are always fascinating to me, right? Because it's like, oh, I mean, you look at something like Squid Game, kind of shared a similar story as well. Squid Game was done for about, I want to say, the better part of 10 years, right? But the creator kept getting denied at all these networks and stuff like that.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden Netflix was like, yeah, sure, why not? It sounds like decent enough. And then look what happened. Squid Game like blew up, and there's so many things now that are influenced by Squid Games. Whether it's gaming or other forms of media. There's so much that sort of is inspired by it now. So it's always interesting to hear stories like that are things that probably would have never happened until someone else took a chance with it.
Yeah. So yeah, that was just kind of my interesting tidbit of the week. I really can't wait till we get to the inevitable episode about Kid Icarus Uprising, because I want to learn everything and anything about that game's development. So yeah, but let's get into our news block, because quite a bit of news this week. I want to start off actually with Resident Evil. So for those of you who are plugged into the gaming sphere for other consoles, there was a big Resident Evil showcase this week. And it was kind of a pipe dream that we were going to get anything substantial for Switch. I mean, I'm sitting over here hoping for the third Resident Evil Revelations game. It's
Right.
not going to happen, but a man can dream.
One of us. Thank you for being a big supporter of Revelations, because I love that series personally.
Thank you. Yes, the true Resident Evil remake series that we all need. So yeah, there was some cool Resident Evil news this week, but mostly for other platforms. But if you're really desperate to play some Resident Evil on the Switch, then boy, does Capcom have news for you. Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3, and Resident Evil 7, they're all getting cloud versions on the Switch, which we knew about. But they're all coming like within the next couple weeks. We're getting 2 and 3 in November, like a week apart from each other. And we're getting Resident Evil 7, the cloud version, in December, like a month later. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's quite a bit of Resident Evil on Switch, just not the way that people probably want it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean...
Dennis, have you ever touched a cloud game in your life? Or you, Nicholas, have you ever touched a cloud game on the Switch?
I have not experienced that evil yet, no.
So
the true evil of Resident Evil.
So I remember trying. See, I've only done the demos, right? Because first of all, I don't believe in paying $60 for a game that is on somebody on a server. That's ridiculous to me. So, but I did try the demo for the cloud version of Control back when that released on the Switch, and credit where credit's due, it was actually pretty responsive. But they're, at least in terms of input. However, in terms of like video bit rates and stuff like that, that was not ideal. And I have a fairly stable internet connection, and a pretty good one at that, because I can play xCloud games like it's no one's business, and I always forget that they're playing them over the cloud. And a similar thing would happen with Stadia games. When Stadia first came out, they were testing. So so this is not a problem with cloud as a whole. This is just a problem with cloud on the Switch, and I just don't think Switch is a viable platform for even cloud content. And but again, credits to cloud. Control was playable, but not ideal. But I've always tried them just purely out of curiosity. That, and then I tried a little bit of Hitman 3 as well over the cloud. Just, again, purely out of curiosity. But yeah, I think it's wild to pay full MSRP for a game that is on a server. That's wild. So.
I think I would be, I'm not totally opposed to the idea of it. And I'm with you. I think Xbox does a pretty good job with it. But I think the big thing that is keeping me from jumping in on the Switch, in addition to, the price tag, as you mentioned, for these games you don't own, is the fact that these aren't really being hosted by Nintendo in the same way, is my understanding. like Nintendo has been helping with marketing them sometimes. My understanding is that these are just hosted by a totally separate company that like does this whole cloud streaming thing, and that just seems much less secure to me. Like I have a little more faith that Microsoft is going to keep their cloud service going longer than just this random company, you know? Yeah. But yeah, that wasn't even the only cloud gaming news that we got this week. We also got a cloud version that launched for A Plague Tale Requiem, which is a very just like, gosh, this game is just immensely impressive, like from a visuals perspective. The A Plague Tale games are really great. The first one I played and loved, and so again, it's great to see that the sequel is on the Switch, because there's no way this game would have been able to run otherwise. In fact, this game is having issues running on some PCs and consoles that it was designed for. It's just like that demanding.
It's Juggernaut. The first one's a fantastic game, but Requiem is a beautiful game that if you haven't played Plague Tale and it's your only way of playing it, then sure, do your best to try if you can play over the cloud, because it's worth playing in any format. Just please do yourself a favor and play it. But yeah, it's a very demanding game that like you said, even current gen hardware is pushing limits. So.
Yeah. Well, hey, here's a couple games that will definitely run on your Switch. I mean, you would hope. Mario Party and Mario Party 2. Like the N64 games. Yeah, those are coming to your Switch via Switch Online very soon in November, it was announced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nintendo's releasing 2 N64 games a month. They're literally doubling their output.
Yeah.
Amazing.
That's a way to look at it. But it's okay. They also announced that Mario Party 3 is coming to Switch Online. So I wonder why they wouldn't just release them all at once.
I mean, 3 N64 games in a month. Yeah, come on. Let's be reasonable here.
Does such a thing exist, Dennis? Can you really have too much Mario Party? I'm not convinced.
I mean, with the way things are going, with newer ones, yes. But with the older ones, no. No, the older ones are classics. So yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Just give it, just bulk drop it. Do a Costco bulk drop, of all the Mario parts.
It's not the trilogy that everyone was asking for. Everyone's been asking for the Metroid Prime trilogy.
That's
but
right.
Nintendo heard that and they're like, hey, we already like trilogies. So
yes, the MP trilogy.
Yeah, MP, that's what you guys mean, right?
We gotcha.
No, not to bag on these games. I know that these games are very nostalgic to a lot of people, and they're not cloud versions, so that's great.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can't personally get excited about these old Mario Party games, mostly because I'm very happy with my Mario Party Superstars that came out recently. That game has been great, and I feel
that game is really, really great, actually. Yeah, that was the first, I think, real, genuinely good Mario Party since, like, I don't even know, 6 or 7, whichever one was on the Wii.
Yeah, and it has a lot of the mini games and some boards from these first 3 Mario Party games too.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of content from these games just kind of brought up to modern standards. So that makes it feel a little even more curious to me. But
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's all part of their strategy.
I think it's like 2 boards from 1, 2 boards from 2, and 1 board from 3. I want to say.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Know.
I do think, maybe not so much for Mario Party 1, but I think Mario Party 2 and 3 still stand out even nowadays as having like mechanics, boards, and whatnot that still kind of hold up, just from a gameplay perspective. Obviously, visually it's not going to be as appealing, but there still can be reasons to play them. They're still pretty decent games even now.
Yes, there's still fun to be had here, and especially like with the online features of Switch Online, I can see a lot of people having fun actually using that for something like this. Mm-hmm. Seeing online features in this game makes a lot more sense to me than how we've seen it in some of their other releases, Yeah. But yeah, so that was exciting to a lot of people this week. Maybe a slightly bigger announcement if you're fans of newer games. So we've been talking about Pokemon a lot on the show lately. But there's the other franchise that also ends in Mon.
Koromon.
You may be familiar with.
Koromon.
Nicholas, there is that. But believe it or not, there's another one called Digimon.
Never heard of it.
Never, no.
No. Sounds like a ripoff.
Yeah. Well, regardless of Nicholas's lack of culture, I am pleased to report that there is a Digimon game coming to Switch. Not a brand new Digimon game. So this game is called Digimon World Next Order. It originally came out for the Vita in 2016, but only in Japan. And then eventually did come to PS4 here in the West. I'm not sure why they're porting it now, but I mean, because the PS4, the English version came out 2017, I want to say?
I want to say around there, yeah. I got it around that time. I even imported the Vita version. And that game, this is not, I'm going to tell you guys right now, this is not,
oh, no.
This is not a game to get excited about.
Okay.
It's not a bad game, but it's far from good. And it's this weird sort of simulation. It's a weird take on simulation, but I think one of the most frustrating parts about that game is you can't walk 5 feet without some Digimon basically crapping itself, and you always have to clean after.
What?
And you think I'm joking?
You mean literally crapping?
It's going back to the roots.
Yeah, because it's also meant to be like a very glorified version. They basically took what was a Tomodachi, and they're like, let's make a sort of RPG out of it. And that's what Digimon World Next Order is a sort of a Tomodachi RPG, if you will. And but yeah, there's a lot of I can't tell you how many times I've had to clean up after Agumon, and after like the 800th time, I was like, I'm done. We're not doing this. And I'm only like 7 hours into this game, but I'm done cleaning up after you. I just want to go explore, but I can't walk 5 feet and pick up this flower to craft something without you having some sort of IBS. I'm done with this. So
I would not have. Okay, the trailer that they released does not indicate that is even a mechanic in the game.
It's not selling points for some reason.
A ton of combat and exploration.
Yeah,
I was like, this looks like a fairly competent RPG if you're a Digimon fan.
Yeah,
no.
When you play the actual game, like look at playthroughs and stuff like that, or even pick it up for yourself on PS4 if you have one, because it goes on sale all the time for like $10, if that, maybe even cheaper. But yeah, it's again, it's amusing, and if you're a Digimon fan, you'll get some enjoyment out of it. But it is ultimately a frustrating and it's funny though. I'll give you that. It's funny, just because of how ridiculous and over the top it is, and hopefully they've fixed some of the bowel rates for some of them.
Not confirmed, but
not confirmed just yet. Yeah.
We'll email our Bandai Namco PR and ask them about that. I'm sure they'll be very happy. Yeah.
That's disappointing to hear, though. I do enjoy, joking aside, I do enjoy Digimon games quite a bit. And also, given that this was a Digimon World game, and those have, a decent enough pedigree, I was hoping this would end up being better than what you're saying it now is.
Yeah.
Well, the Digimon story games, Dennis, I remember you raving about those.
Oh, absolutely.
I've heard great things about those, even from people who aren't Digimon fans.
I really still need to play Cyber Sleuth. I really want to. Yeah. Just 2 100-hour RPGs.
Cyber Sleuth is one of my favorite games to come out in years, at least the first one. Hacker's Memory was fine, but the original one is absolutely brilliant. I mean, that game, I put over 100 hours on my Vita. I beat it after about 75 hours, but I put over 100 overall. And I tried going for the platinum in that game, man, but that platinum is tough. It's tough. So I had to give up after a while. But yeah, those games are brilliant. And I think it's funny to me that I think those games outdid, at the time, every Pokemon game before it. Because it was basically what I had been looking for or where I wanted Pokemon to go for a while, at least in terms of production value. Digimon Cyber Sleuth was just this grandiose, fantastic game with, really faithful recreations of, cities in Japan that you could, roam around in. And the story was just absolutely fantastic, super gripping, captivating, and truly fantastic. I can't praise those games enough, truly.
No, that's great to hear. I mean, hey, at least, if you're a Digimon fan and you're on the Switch, at least you have some options, which is never a bad thing. Not to mention, we just got Digimon Survive months ago.
Yeah.
I didn't realize like the Yeah, I'll be honest. I had like not even heard like anything at all about the Digimon brand in like the longest time until we started hearing about Digimon Survive. So like to me, like it's like crazy that we're getting all these games right now because maybe I'm just not in that zeitgeist, but I don't really hear a lot of people talking about it. So I guess I figured it was one of those things that had kind of faded over time a little bit. But
yeah, I think it's definitely not to the height that it used to be, but it's still around. Yeah. They're still getting different anime series that come out periodically, and obviously they're getting games as well. So I think it's probably still doing fine for itself.
Well, that's hey, if you're listening and you're excited about Digimon World Next Order, let us know in the comments because I'd really like to hear from some hardcore Digimon fans about like what is exciting about this game. You know?
Is there a diaper item you unlock partway through that reduces the rate of?
Exactly.
If they're going for realism, I guess that's a component there. People don't always think about. You have all these Pokemon just chilling in your bag and probably make a mess sometimes. There's a lot of responsibility involved. All right, well, on that moving on. We also got a release date for a game that was announced for Switch a while ago. Oddworld Soulstorm. So the Oddworld franchise. Oh, I can't say that. Oddworld. I keep trying to say like Old World or something.
More like Odd Word.
Oddworld. Nicolas coming in with the puns. Love it. So Oddworld Soulstorm. This was the newest entry in the Oddworld franchise, which it was a pretty big gap between games. Oddworld Soulstorm came out, I want to say a little bit after the launch of the PS5. It was a pretty big next-gen game, one of the big next-gen indies of the flavor of the season, let's say, when it came out. Didn't get like amazing critical acclaim, but overall the perception was like, hey, this is a really solid game in the franchise. It has some new ideas, and it looks really good on new consoles. The animations are really good and very detailed. So yeah, this game it was announced for Switch, and we learned that it is coming on November 8th, and a little bit earlier in Europe. Europe is getting it this next week, so lucky you, Europe.
For some
has
reason.
anyone here played much Oddworld?
I haven't. I played maybe the first one forever ago, and I can't even remember what. I think it was on a floppy disk. I'm not even joking. Like,
whoa.
Yeah.
You're dating yourself here, Dennis.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the good old days of dial-up and all of that. But yeah, I want to say it was on a floppy disk, and it was fine. I mean, I've enjoyed Oddworld to some extent. I think the last one I played though was like, God, I think I want to say there was one on like 360 maybe or PS3, one of those. And it was fine, but yeah, I don't know. That series has always been a little too weird for me, so I've never really enjoyed it. I feel like as much as I could, because I couldn't get over just how weird it was.
Are you referring to like the design of the characters and just like,
everything? Yeah, the design, because they are technically good games. But yeah, I think they were just a little too out there. But yeah, like you said, in terms of design and environment and just the weirdness of everything, I was like, because I can't go 5 minutes playing the game without going like, why is everything so weird? And like,
well, it's not called normal world.
Well, that's true. That's true. That is true. Yeah, but I feel like sometimes it kind of takes away from it in an odd way. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't know, but I couldn't click with it 100%. It's kind of my same deal with Psychonauts, even though Psychonauts I think is brilliant. Again, it after a while, I'm just like, I can't look at this anymore. Like I'm taking a break from the game, not because I'm tired of it, but because I literally can't look at it anymore. So yeah, it's weird in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's an interesting perspective. I played a little bit of one of the Oddworld games at one point, but it was also a long time ago, and I feel like it's just kind of this vague memory in my mind. I'm always down for like a good puzzle platformer. This one, just glancing over at Steam, has mixed reviews. Some people really like it. Some people say it's stunningly beautiful, quotes, and lovers of the franchise will certainly enjoy this one. But other people say it's pretty buggy and just kind of a boring game. So your mileage may vary. Everything is subjective, but this is, again, I know this is not like a massive like showcase for graphical prowess, but it is just always like interesting to me when you see games that are kind of positioned as big next gen indie gems, and then they do end up eventually coming to Switch. It shows that the Switch does still have some life left in it. Some games can still be ported over, as we've also seen with like NER and some other great ports lately. Oddworld Soulstorm is coming out soon on the Switch, and let us know if this is something you are excited about, because I know there are fans out there. All right, we're gonna kind of switch gears here and talk about some updates on some news stories that we talked about recently, and also like literal updates, like content updates. We're lumping it all together here in our new segment that I'm like calling "Update Your Switch Games." I don't know. No, let's start with a news update. So last week we talked a little bit about Bayonetta 3. I'm sure a lot of our listeners are aware of the drama surrounding the voice acting. I'm not going to sum everything up here, but the long and short of it is that there's a new voice actor for Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3, which is coming out really soon. And the old voice actor basically said that she did not take the job because she was lowballed an offer that she felt was exploitative and not fair. And so that was what we discussed last week. This week, the story developed a little bit. We got some conflicting accounts. There was a Bloomberg report that basically showed a document that indicated that no, actually, Helena Taylor's offer was more than what she claimed it was. And then Platinum Games came out and they had a statement basically, kind of not overtly pointing fingers at anyone, but just kind of indicating like, hey, there's more to the story than this. So yeah, we just wanted to give a quick update. It seems like there's a little bit more going on here. It's not this black and white thing. Someone is not telling the full truth, and we still don't really know who it is. I don't know, Nicholas, what's your take on this whole situation?
I mean, I think the main thing to be aware of is just, at least now we have perspectives from both sides, right? Because regardless of who you believe or what exactly you think to be correct, it's very hard to make opinions back when we had the original story and the only person that stated their side of the facts was Helena Taylor. Because even if it's like a very emotional appeal and it sounds very reasonable, it's still only one perspective on the whole situation. So now that we've actually gotten multiple angles looking at this, I think it's, you can actually start forming a better, more informed opinion.
Yeah, no, it's important. I think that was always going to be the caveat with this. It probably is still, because one of the things Helena Taylor was coming out and saying when she was trying to explain her side of the story for the situation, her claims, she was asking fans to boycott the game. That's maybe could be considered kind of a big ask for some people, as considering there's still some level of ambiguity about the facts in this story. So I don't know. I mean, Nicholas, my understanding from our last conversation was you don't think this is something worth boycotting over? Has that changed?
Well, it's kind of just in the first place, it's a matter of, like, obviously, this is something that, if true, should have been brought to attention and should be changed. Even assuming that she did not say the truth, if that is the case, it's still something that needs to be brought to attention because voice actors being underpaid is a problem in the industry. But in terms of a boycott, it's just there's a lot of other reasons to want to play the game other than the main character's voice acting, right? Like,
right.
There's a lot of people working on the title other than the voice actors that might not, that might suffer from this if the game is boycotted. Even if developers have already been paid, having a game that's a complete flop might lead to some of them being kind of like kicked off the team, or the game might not get another entry. And like, there's a lot going on there that is kind of, at the end of the day, if you want to boycott the game, you want to boycott the game, but it shouldn't be a fact where you would shame other people for not doing so, because it would be a personal decision based on what you consider to be your investment in the franchise and just the creator's investment in it.
Yeah.
Dennis, what's your take on all this? It's a kind of a complicated situation, and even at this point.
It absolutely is. In terms of the, let me just say this. In terms of the boycotting, because I think that's the part that I had the most trouble with. I understand her intent to sort of find a way to fight back. I don't know if that's the best way to go about doing it, and if anything, I believe it backfired, unfortunately, just because I don't know if you guys saw, but shortly after that video was posted, it became Bayonetta 3 became the #1 game, or at least top 3 game on Amazon sales charts in 4 different countries. If I'm not mistaken, it was U.S., UK, France, and Germany. I could be wrong. Maybe it was somewhere else as well. But yeah, so that sort of backfired in that regard. But the morality of it is, I don't want to lose focus on the important point of, for me, it's not a matter of boycotting it, because Bayonetta as a character and as a franchise means a lot to me, right? My cat's name is Cereza, based off of Bayonetta, right?
That is some dedication.
Yeah, so I love Bayonetta, and even though I never got a proper license plate for it, I always wanted to, get a Bayonetta license plate for my car.
Wow. That's
yeah.
cool.
So, but yeah. So Bayonetta 3. A lot of people have been waiting a long time for Bayonetta 3, and and now we're finally getting it. And this story comes out, which is extremely unfortunate, but I think we need to put aside the fact that it's attached to Bayonetta 3 and focus on the bigger issue, and which is, there is a consistent theme of voice actors not getting paid enough. And I think that should be the core focus of all of this. Never mind that it's attached to Bayonetta 3, and whether you want to boycott Bayonetta 3 because of the pay behind it. I think that's irrelevant to what the core focus of the discussion should be, which is voice actors getting properly paid. But the odd part is, whether Helena Taylor's telling the truth or not. And I know I want to give her the benefit of the doubt, but they replace her with Jennifer Hale, right?
No, I'm with you. Like I always want to give the benefit of the doubt to someone who says that they were wronged or taken advantage of, but something is not adding up between her account and the reality of the situation, which is Jennifer Hale is a very accomplished voice actor who probably would command more money, and why would they go through this trouble if
Right. She's an incredible voice actress that's done, voices for, she did Rivet in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, right? She's been like Cinderella in some of the smaller, Disney cartoons. She's done a countless amount of anime. Now she's Bayonetta and Bayonetta 3. I probably know her best from playing Ashe in Overwatch. And she's played Commander Shepard in the Mass Effect series, right?
Yes.
And she has voice talent in For Honor and tons of Lego games, and she's not. If anything, she would be substantially more expensive than Helena Taylor in terms of just paycheck, but also just historically speaking, she's very, very accomplished. So I'm not sure where that decision came from, or if they were just like, look, we need a voice and we need a voice now, forget it, let's just get someone high profile, right, and give them the paycheck that we probably should have given Helena Taylor to begin with, but whatever, that's that bridge has been burned now,
Right.
So yeah, it's a tough situation to sort of talk about, especially when we don't know the full story, so everything is purely speculation, right? And it's like you guys were saying, where it's like it's not black and white, and you want to give her the benefit of the doubt because there is a history of voice actors becoming, underpaid. And then of course a lot of other voice actors have come out and talked about things that they've gotten paid for, right? And I think the biggest problem is they don't typically get residuals or royalties, which is, I think, the biggest problem when it comes to stuff like this, where it's like, it's one thing if you're only going to get paid $4,000 per session or just overall. Yeah, that's low regardless. But
although if you're a voice actor and you're working all the time, I mean that could certainly add up.
Sure,
That's another
yeah, absolutely,
element of that. But
absolutely, yeah. But even so, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, royalties can go a long way because yeah, I mean, you're paying $4,000 per session, and like you said, you have a lot of stuff lined up throughout the year. Sure, fine, but when a game sells 30 million copies, 10 million, or whatever,
you would hope,
right? Like even if you got just 1% of that, that could be life changing for some people.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. It's a complicated situation to speak on, and I don't want to be ignorant or oblivious to the fact that I don't want to immediately take sides. Again, even though I would prefer to give Helena Taylor the benefit of the doubt, but again, she said there's emails and stuff. Show me the emails. Show me the evidence. Just if there's evidence, show it.
Right.
Corroborate and back up your statements.
She really has not done for her part.
Right. Right.
I do think we're getting to the point where I think the conversation is going to start shifting back towards the game, because the game is going to be out very soon.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to kind of fall towards the wayside. Maybe not immediately, but I think unless something big happens and she actually does present some evidence for her claims, or Platinum Games really, files a lawsuit or something ridiculous, I think this is going to go towards the back burner. I mean, we don't get crazy drama like this all the time, but I think at the end of the day, we're kind of at a standstill right now unless someone does something big. And I don't know if that would be a good thing or not.
Yeah.
And
yeah. It kind of seems,
especially.
It kind of seems like at this point she even said that she just wants to leave the franchise behind her. So I don't think we're gonna get too much more on this front.
Which is also, I mean, that's just a weird thing to say. Like, if you really want to leave this franchise behind you, why would you make such a big deal about this?
Well, I mean, I see that argument, and it's weird trying to play devil's advocate, obviously, but it's again, I think the bigger picture is like, voice actors not getting paid their due, even though they bring all these characters to life, right? Because Bayonetta is a massive, massive character, and her voice has always been key to, I think, bringing Bayonetta alive. I mean, there's no character that sounds like Bayonetta. I mean, sure, there's plenty of characters with English accents, but Bayonetta has such a certain tone and a certain smoothness to her voice that balances confidence, but that seductiveness as well. So that is very hard to replicate, and yeah, it's Bayonetta. I can't explain other than that, So you would think, that such a notable character like her, would get, her due in terms of,
yeah.
But
no, we definitely want to, reward people who are working hard in this industry, and I don't think that's up for debate for a lot of people, But yeah, anyways, that's the long and short of the situation as it is right now. I don't know how much more we'll be talking about in the future, but if anything big happens, we will try and keep all of our listeners updated. Now, speaking of updates, let's switch over to software updates. Yeah, that was a smooth transition.
There we go.
Yeah, so we also mentioned last week about how Switch Sports was basically broken because of an update that Nintendo pushed out. For those who didn't listen to the last segment, basically what had happened was Nintendo pushed out an update to try and combat cheating and do some other things in the back end, but it basically messed up the game for a lot of people. It caused the game to crash. It, basically made online play completely unplayable and also affected the offline play. So the game has just not been playable for a lot of people for the past week. But they put out a patch today that supposedly seems to be fixing things. So I think things are back to normal, as far as I'm aware. I'll be honest, I haven't booted up Switch Sports since April, so this did not affect me in any way, shape, or form, but
I think we knew this was going to happen, though. I mean, this is a game that came out half-baked, and unfortunately there's a lot of spin-offs lately that have been coming out half-baked, Battle League, and, it's just unfortunate that, this has been a consistent trend, but I think it's too little too late, and I think the game, it doesn't have anywhere near that impact that Wii Sports did, even though I think we all saw that coming. But it's unfortunate.
It is worth noting, though. I gotta give Nintendo some credit here. So they said that people who have played the game and who have a Switch Online membership will have their membership extended by a week, basically, because of the online issues. Which is actually like pretty good on them. Like I can't think of a lot of other companies that would do that.
No, but I mean, considering you can get a 7-day trial for 0 coins.
I
from my
know,
Nintendo.
I know.
It's I mean, how much
Look,
is 7 days?
it's still nice,
really?
Dennis. Okay.
It is. But to be fair, when a month is only $3.99, I think they could have sacrificed a month for everybody, just to kind of.
That's true. A week, really breaking the bank there, Nintendo.
Yeah.
It's good PR at least, but.
And hey, golf is coming out soon. Maybe, possibly.
And there is golf.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, free of charge. Need to remind you, they're not charging extra for golf, so. Yeah, that's something, I guess. Totally off topic, but they're opening a place near me that's it's kind of like Topgolf, but it's specifically for like putting and like mini golf. So you can go and you can do mini golf and have drinks and food. I'm like, that's a cool idea.
Sir, pick me up right away. Let's go. That sounds amazing.
Deal, guys.
That sounds fantastic.
It does sound great. I'm not actually good at golf in any way, shape, or form, but I don't think that's the point of a place.
No, that's
like
not
that.
the point at all. No, but that sounds great though. It does.
Even if you're not, you can still play Nintendo Switch Sports Golf on your Nintendo Switch.
That's right. That's
Very little skill required. I can vouch for that personally. All right. One more kind of last minute update I want to shout out here. One of the big games of the fall, Disney Dreamlight Valley. We all know Dennis's favorite game to play on the Switch specifically.
Specifically, yeah.
It is getting its first kind of real big content update. If you're playing this game, you're probably already pretty looped in, but you can now recruit Scar, the villain from The Lion King, to come live in your peaceful valley for some reason. Wouldn't necessarily be my first choice of a next door neighbor, considering he's literally an evil lion. But there's folks out there, I'm sure, animal fans celebrate. And then on top of that, we've also got, they added some seasonal content, so there's some new Halloween stuff, because it is the spooky season. And they've also been patching the game and putting in some other stuff. I'm not seeing anything specific to the Switch version. Dennis, have you checked out the game recently? Is the performance any better on the Switch?
Yeah. Well, performance as a whole has gotten better. Now on the Series S and X, they both run at 60 frames, which is like fantastic. Like I remember walking into the room, my girlfriend was playing, and I was just like, I mean, it was like night and day. I was like, oh my god, immediately, that's so smooth. Like, the performance was immediately noticeable. On Switch, it's at the it more or less performs the same, but it is a lot more stable. The crashes are, I don't want to say rare, but they are much less noticeable. And it's stable enough, and they did add some enhancements to the lighting and the shading. So overall, I mean, the game looks visually better. Now, performance-wise on the Switch, I mean, you're still getting a target of 30 frames. It's not exactly hitting that in most cases, but it is definitely playable now compared to when it first launched and when we, reviewed the game, because it was. Wow,
yeah.
What a mess pre-launch that was, and yeah, I mean, you all heard my statement, so I'm not going to reiterate those, but
right.
But yeah, I was pretty livid. But yeah, otherwise, I mean, the game is certainly playable on Switch now for sure. But I still recommend that people, if you have the option to play it elsewhere, play it elsewhere. But otherwise, if Switch is your only option, or if you are really dead set on playing it only on Switch, then sure, I think now it's finally stable enough where I think you can get a big amount of enjoyment out of it.
Yeah, I did actually just check the patch notes, and it does say that they did improve stability and performance on Switch with this latest update. Okay. That does kind of echo what you're saying, which is great to hear. Yeah, it is still an early access game, which I think is easy to forget when they're asking people to spend money on it. But, that being said, this does seem like the kind of game that's going to get a lot of updates, and they seem like they've been pretty receptive in listening to community feedback, so I'm optimistic about it for sure. I've had to take a break from it for a little while because I'm just so busy playing other things right now, including a game which I will talk about very shortly. But I do really want to get back to it because I just feel like, between all this content that they're adding over the next couple months and everything already in the game that I haven't seen, this could be something cool in a couple more months. All right, we are almost towards the end of our show, and I promise I am going to talk about Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope. I am working on a review of the game. It is a very big game. It is a very long game. So I've really been trying to dig into the side content, so I'm not quite as far into it, but I do want to talk about it. But before we get to that, that will be in our What Have We Been Playing section. Just want to touch base on a couple of the other big notable releases that came out this week, because boy, oh boy, you are spoiled for choice this week if you are in the market for a new game. So this was a surprise. We knew it was coming, but we didn't know when, and it just dropped on the Switch this week. Alan Wake Remastered. It got a Switch port, and they just threw it on the store one day, and you can go buy it now. Have heard it's not necessarily the best port, which probably contributes to it being just released without any fanfare on the Switch. But it doesn't look bad from what I've seen. It just seems like a lot of the compromises that I think Switch players have come to expect at this point. And it is, $30, so, it's not asking for a ton. I am glad this game is coming to Switch because we could always use more games of this style on the platform.
Yeah. I think, Alan Wake is an important game, I feel like, to the genre of just sort of mystery action thrillers, if you will. But looking at comparisons, again, I haven't played it for myself, so I can't entirely speak for it. But it's definitely one of those games where it's like I appreciate the effort, but I don't think it was meant for it. I think because it just felt like sort of going to an actual wake. I mean, this thing was sort of but I mean, again, I appreciate the effort, but I think that there's a reason why this was a surprise release, because they're just like, I think we'll get more buzz, if people are like, oh my god, Alan Wake Remastered's on the Switch, what? And then they'll just sort of buy it outright because of the history of Alan Wake. They're sort of like, they're too excited to even think rationally, so they're just like, oh my god, I'll buy it.
Right,
and then
right.
Versus like, if there was a lot of marketing and stuff leading up to it, it's just like, oof, no, I'm not getting that on Switch. So yeah.
I mean, again, like, I don't think it's a horrible port like some people are making it out to be, but yeah, if you have another way to play it, you might want to consider that first, because I've heard it is even more impressive and fun if you have access to one of the newer consoles, and playing it in 4K and stuff, I'm sure, is a treat. All right, so that was just one of the releases. I want to quickly mention Persona 5 Royal. That is finally out now on Switch. Great place to play it. This is the game that people have been begging for on the Switch since it came out. So now is your time, Persona fans, to put your money where your mouth is and show Atlas we want all of the Persona games on the Switch.
It's time for
we're basically getting,
It's time for all Persona 5 fans to play the game for the first time.
Right.
Yeah, there you go. No, but I mean, I'm really glad. Like, I want more people to play these games. My friend, actually, he just jumped into the version that launched on Game Pass, and man, I tried for so long. I gave him my old PS4, I let him borrow my copy of the game, and I was like, his name's Michael, actually. I was like, Michael, you've got to play this game, and it is a classic. And he jumped into it for like an hour, and he was like, oh, that's not my thing. But he said he's been picking it up again on Game Pass, and he says he absolutely loves it now, so I'm hoping that will be the case for a lot of people.
Yeah, I definitely still need to get into that. I haven't picked it up yet because it's another 100-hour RPG, and there are too many games coming out.
If you're lucky. Yeah. If you're lucky, it's a 100-hour RPG.
I still really want to play it, though. I really do.
I mean, yeah, I do not think you will be disappointed when you do. Another game I want to shout out, this is a fighting game. This one has kind of made a splash on the indie scene. We've actually seen it pop up at some fighting expos in the past year or so. It's called, this just makes me happy because it's a pun. It's called Them's Fightin' Herds, like that, like fight in words, but herds, because all the characters are horses, so you are playing as horses that fight each other.
Horses and horse adjacent.
Very silly.
To be fair.
Are there horse adjacent?
I think there's like a cow. I think there's also a llama, if I recall correctly. But quadrupedal, horse adjacent, I guess. It's like herd animals
in the same family. Yeah. If you're into fighting games, this one has very good reviews. Even if the aesthetic is not your thing, which is totally understandable. It seems like it's a solid game at a mechanical level. I'd be interested to see how people respond to this one now it's getting a bigger console release. Because it was only on Steam.
In spite of the kind of niche visuals, it really has gotten like super positive responses in terms of net play and gameplay. It also looked like the story mode is actually pretty solid and fleshed out in terms of having like an overworld map and stuff. So
yeah, which especially for like an indie fighter, I mean, gosh, we see fighters coming from big companies that don't even attempt stuff like that. So you love to see it. This is one kind of like oddball release I want to shout out. This was revealed during a recent Nintendo Direct. And stop me if you've heard this one before, because I don't think you have. It's a crossover between Monster Rancher, of all things, and Ultraman. This was news to me. I thought it was just called Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher because it's like definitive version. But no, it has Ultraman crossover elements in it. So it's very weird. But this is you raise kaiju in it's like Tamagotchi, but with giant Japanese monsters, and you have them fight each other. There's a great review out there. I can't remember what channel it was, but it seems like it's a niche game for sure. But if you're into very silly games and you're into monster fighters, it could be worth checking out, I suppose.
I think I've heard some positive takes on it. Like, it is genuinely a good Monster Rancher game. And I do think that the whole kaiju aspect does give it that sort of little niche that makes it pretty fun.
Yeah, I'd say if you're trying to get a good sense for what the game is about, go check out the Switch Watch review. They did a good job. It definitely made me curious about it. Maybe a little too out there for me, but I do always have this morbid curiosity when it comes to weird games, as I think a lot of us do. All right, and I promise this is the last game I want to shout out in this segment, but I told you this was a massive week for releases. New Tales from the Borderlands. This is it is a sequel to the original Tales from the Borderlands, which, for those of you who aren't familiar, was a narrative-centric kind of Borderlands spin-off game by Telltale Games. This game is not like a direct sequel to that game. It's a similar style, but it has a new cast of characters, and it takes place at a different point in the timeline. Game has gotten pretty good reviews. Doesn't seem like it's anything groundbreaking. It's definitely going to be different compared to the first game. Just having a different cast and a different tone overall. Doesn't seem like it's going to maybe obtain that legendary status. And I haven't heard much about the Switch version in particular. We did not receive a review code for it despite asking for one, so that doesn't leave me super optimistic about its performance on Switch. I would love to be proven wrong. So if you're playing this game, let us know how it's performing on Switch. But yeah, I know we don't have a ton of big Borderlands fans in here, but if you guys really do ever have the opportunity, I would recommend checking out the first one, because it's just a genuinely hilarious, very well-written game. All right, and that about wraps up our show for the week. But before we go, we're going to end with our classic closing segment, What has everyone been playing lately? And Dennis, let's start with you, since it's been a week or two since we've had you on the show. What have you been up to?
Yeah, well, honestly, not as much as I would like, but I have been investing a lot of time into finally, because I can finally get in. At first, I couldn't, but I can finally been playing a lot of Overwatch 2. And
congratulations! You
thank
got
you.
accepted into the
Thank you.
servers.
I did.
You joined the club.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. It is. It's Overwatch. I mean, just as we remember it. But all jokes aside, though, it's great. So I mean, if you enjoy Overwatch to begin with, you're gonna love Overwatch 2. Really, literally, not much has changed.
Because it's the same
all.
game, right?
Yeah, it's literally the same thing. Everything that would have been new is being held off until 2023. So I think the real Overwatch 2 doesn't come out until next year, really. So all the PvE stuff and the sort of hero upgrades and things like that. It definitely feels a lot more scaled down this time around. Like they're definitely pushing the new push mode more than anything else, because you can queue for all roles in just about any mode, and 9 times out of 10 you'll get the new push mode. And I don't know if that's just to sort of ease, new players into Overwatch as well, and not overwhelm them with a million different maps. So now that it's free to play, but overall, yeah, I mean, it's Overwatch as you remember it. It's so I mean, if you liked it to begin with, you're gonna still love it now. I will say I don't know if you guys have been seeing articles and stuff lately, but people have been asking for loot boxes back.
Wait, actually?
And
like they want it in the game.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, they want it
versus
in
like
the
the
game.
traditional structure.
Well, loot boxes just felt a lot, even though you couldn't really control or know what was, coming out of it, and what you were gonna get. It just felt a lot more accessible because you could easily grind them out. At least for me. I mean, I never felt like I had trouble getting what I wanted, whether it was a legendary skin or something, fairly common, regardless. But now, with the Battle Pass, as most free-to-play games, if not all free-to-play games at this point have, you do have to... The grind isn't necessarily the problem as it is how they treat what you do towards progressing in the Battle Pass. They have challenges and stuff that you can do to help get substantially more experience than you normally would in just completing a random match towards your battle pass. So let's just say a normal match would give you 500 XP. Completing these challenges can give you 3,000 or sometimes even 5,000 XP, and it only takes about 10,000 experience to gain a level each time. So doing these challenges definitely helps things, but you're limited to how many challenges you can do per day. So for example, with daily challenges, you can only do 3 a day, and then for weekly challenges, you have 7 days to do them. But those challenges, more often than not, are not difficult. Isn't the word, but
tedious?
They are laborious.
It does not
tedious,
sound fun the way you were describing it. I mean, I'll be honest. You lost me when you said the word battle pass. I mean, it's just kind of like a filter for me,
Yeah, and like I get it, it's like you gotta make money somehow, but a lot of the stuff in the store that you can buy individually is obnoxious also. Like, you want me to pay 1,000 Overwatch coins, which basically translates to $10, for like this basic ass looking skin. Get out of here. Like, it's a palette swap. Get out of here, Blizzard. You crazy? So people are asking for loot boxes back because it just, despite the randomness of it, they were just easier to get, and it was fun to work towards them because at the time you could do every 3 matches that you participated in, win or lose, you would get a loot box, right? At least for your dailies, right? And then, but if you just every time you gained a level, you would get a loot box, and gaining a level was pretty easy. Just play maybe 3 or 4 matches, and you would gain a level, and that would also increase your player level, your rank. Now your level is based off of your battle pass position, which means every season you're going to go back to 0. So your rank doesn't really mean anything unless you're doing competitive, but even that gets reset every season as well, right? So there's not much value in terms of I guess
it's not sounding like they put a lot of thought into like making the system more fun for players. It sounds like they were making all these changes based on what seems to be popular right now in terms of
Right.
how multiplayer games are structuring, and it just is not working.
Investor
in this
feedback.
particular game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
It's,
And I've pretty much accepted at this point that, if majority, if not all skins moving forward are just going to be, both in the battle pass and just in the store, I've just accepted the fact that, what, I guess I'm not getting skins anymore. But I play the game
yeah.
because I enjoy the game, right? It is a
Mhm.
fun game. They've nailed the mechanics, the foundation of it, the core gameplay is incredible. But yeah, the outside of the gameplay itself, it becomes problematic because, I mean, they're just skins, they're just cosmetics, but I mean, they're fun. It gives off personality, right? It gives off player personality in terms of what you want for your player icon, your player banner, how you want your heroes to look,
Mm.
the emotes you want to use, the voice lines, the sprays, so on and so forth. But yeah, all that charm is sort of lost, unfortunately. That personality and that customization is lost when everything is now pretty much behind a paywall. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's
yeah,
a shame. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm surprised, to be honest with you. I was kind of expecting something like this when this
well,
game
yeah,
launched, but it's still not what you want to hear. I know a lot of people who were looking for this game are disappointed with how it's panned out. But
yeah,
I guess, the benefit with these types of live service games is things are always going to change, and hopefully developers are listening to this type of feedback. And, I hope for your sake, Dennis, that they make it more fun and more rewarding.
yeah. Let's hope so. There's definitely a lot of improvements to be made. I think in terms of coins, I'm just gonna say this as my last thing, but the coins in particular, I think should be included in the battle pass. They're not. So the only way you're
Mm.
gonna get coins is by spending real money or doing those weekly challenges. But let me say this: those weekly challenges, you get only 60 at most a week. So you get 30 for completing, let's just say 5 or 6 challenges, another 20 for doing maybe a total of 8 challenges, and then 10 more for completing like a 10 or 11 challenges. And yeah, so 60 a week, but your skins are anywhere between $10 and $20, if not more, for these bundles, $30, $40.
Yikes.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
takes like
I'm
over
not even
10
joking.
That's
days to get
crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
mm.
like no, we're good, we're good. So
All
yeah.
right. Well, I can safely cross that one off my list of games of interest. So thank you for that, Dennis. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no problem. Let me know if you want to play sometime.
Nicholas, what about you? What have you been up to lately, game
Yeah, so
wise?
still playing some Splatoon 3 as a side game. I recently finished up everything I
Yeah.
wanted to do with Xenoblade 3, so I'm just, putting that down until the next wave of DLC. And, with everything releasing this month, I thought it would be a great opportunity to just kind of ignore all of that and go back to other 50 plus hour RPGs, which is why I am playing through
Sure.
Final Fantasy VII. The original.
I mean, I think some people would say there's not a bad time to play through Final Fantasy
This is
VII.
true. But yeah, I had originally played the game back in like 2020 and dropped it because Xenoblade Definitive Edition came out, which I guess kind of makes it ironic that now that I finished Xenoblade 3, I'm coming back to it. But yeah, I'm like partway through disc 2, and I've been procrastinating not like getting back into the game and actually properly finishing it. So I'm hoping to finally get around to that and, finally marking that as complete in the backlog.
Yeah, and hey, maybe right in time for the Crisis Core remix.
Yeah,
to
that's
come
true.
out.
I definitely going to be interesting. I already know the plot beats of Crisis Core just because,
Okay.
it's been around for forever.
Sure, yeah.
But, it'll be fun to actually finally just get the original Final Fantasy VII done with. And then eventually I might move on to the remake at some point as well, but start with the beginning.
Yeah, I've played quite a bit of Final Fantasy, but I have not played 7, mostly because I know it's I know it's a classic, but I do have a hard time going back to the RPGs with just the static backgrounds. I can play a lot of old RPGs, but those ones I have a hard time with. So I do really want to go and play the remakes at some point. I actually have it installed on my PS5 right now. But I'm kind of holding out to play the Crisis Core remaster because I know it's silly. I know the prequel came out after the games, but I feel like it's a good place to start, But playing since you've been playing through the original version, or I should say the Switch port, how's your experience been? Do you feel like it's still holds up? Do you think it's still fun and entertaining?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm kind of still just derusting because old RPGs having to jump back in after not playing it for like 2 years.
Sure.
There's a lot to try and relearn and figure out, and just like what have I already done? What am I still needing to do? But I do think it.
What have I done?
I do think it holds up though. Visually, it's definitely not as impressive as it once was. That's for sure. Like you said, static backgrounds.
Sure.
They still look fairly nice, but they're still kind of dated. The models are still... The in-battle models aren't too bad, but the overworld models are very polygonal. But the core of the game is still solid, right? Like, the core of the game is still well built, and I think it still holds up, and that's really what makes the game fun. It has a good combat system,
Yeah.
The materia system is well thought out, and ends up giving you a lot of customization in what you can do. Story is obviously still good. So, yeah, still enjoying my time with it.
Good to hear. Yeah, I think if I ever was to jump into those older Final Fantasy games, I mean, Switch is probably where I'd want to do it. I think they'd be easier to digest.
You're not exactly sacrificing performance or anything, so you might as well.
Sure. Yeah. Well, cool. No, that's good to hear. I always like hearing about old games. Sometimes it ends up making me reconsider and be like, oh, maybe I should go back and play that. But we'll see. As for myself, as I promised, I do want to talk a little bit about Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't read any of the reviews that are already out, it's a very, very good game. It pretty much blows the original game out of the water in every conceivable way, in my opinion. And while I'm not quite done with it yet, I think even if you have zero interest in strategy games, you should play this because it will impress you and you will have more fun than you think because it does not feel like a strategy game a lot of times, which I guess could be a good thing or a bad thing. I guess I should say you can make it feel like as much or as little of a strategy game if you want to. Like you can, if you want to really focus on equipping your characters with certain sparks and giving yourself buffs and debuffs, and you can do that. If you want to try and wipe out an entire battlefield before they even had a chance to do a turn, you can do that. Or if you just want to just take your time and just go around the battlefield and dash in enemies and stuff, you can do that too. So it's a really just it's a game that really lets you play how you want, and I think that's going to make it really approachable to a lot of people. You can even if you're really just averse to it, they have some accessibility features where you can really just dial in I want the enemies to do more damage or I want them to do less damage. I want to play with invulnerability on if you're having a really hard time and you just want to progress. So I like seeing stuff like that, and I think it's stuff like that that's really going to make this game reach more people. And the exploration is man, this is a level of exploration that just feels very satisfying compared to the first game. There are so many just tucked away secrets, and you are always rewarded for going off the beaten path and taking on some challenging fights to see what lies beyond that blocked pathway, and it's very, very good.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I really want to get around to it. I probably will when the game goes on sale within a few months because it's a Ubisoft game.
Yeah.
But it's just great hearing because, we've talked about this at length, but the first Mario plus Rabbids was such a surprise, breakout success. And it's great to hear that the second game just still follows up on that, and it wasn't just, one-time fluke. They just managed to land it when no one was expecting it. No, this is a genuinely well-built game and well-built franchise with developers that care and know what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you can just really just see the amount of care that went into it, at almost every turn. Specifically, I'm just talking about just the art direction and the level of detail and animations. It's all just really good. The only, I would say, gripe I have with it is that I don't actually think it looks or plays as good as the first game does.
Huh.
It does stutter a lot more. There's a lot more frame rate drops. I think partially just because of the bigger scope. And it doesn't look quite as crisp or as colorful, I would say. Even on my Switch OLED, I don't think it like pops as much as the first game did. And but those are really my only grievances. Like, it's still an amazing game, and if you have any interest in it, I would recommend it. Dennis, you're gonna pick it up at some point?
Yeah, probably at some point. I'm definitely interested in it. I think basically everything you've said is a big reason why it appealed to me. I didn't know about the accessibility features though. I think that's fantastic, and yeah, I'm definitely interested in it. I couldn't click with the first game, I think, as much as other people, and it's not because I don't like strategy RPGs, especially that's those that are more in the same vein as like XCOM. Because that's actually quite the contrary. I love those types of games. But for me, the first one felt a little too. It sounds like it's a little different this time around from how you've explained it. But the first one for me felt a little bit too. I didn't like the fact that I would walk a little bit. It would be battle, slight little area, like a little tiny area where you can sort of quote unquote explore,
Yeah.
and then battle again.
About.
Yeah, the repetitive nature of that and the lack of true freedom really bothered me, because I was like, if we're gonna do this in succession every time, then just do it in succession every time, or have like a level select or something, because this is like you're giving me a false world, basically, and it's beautiful, don't get me wrong, it's a beautiful, stunning world that they've designed, and so there's a lot of great stuff to look at, but it's underutilized, and I'm big on environmental design, so when you have such a fantastic environment that can't really be explored or appreciated, that bothers me, and because I'm just like, man, I would really love to go over there, only I can't because I'm confined, I'm restricted to the confines of this little 4x4 space, and I'm not even talking about being in the battles. I'm just talking about really just the roaming aspect of it,
Yeah.
So yeah, just crossing a bridge, going into a battle, that bothered me. Crossing another bridge, going into a battle, I'm like, why even have me walk if I'm gonna have to jump into another battle 5 seconds from now? Just get me into that battle.
Yeah.
It bothers me.
I mean, I imagine that semi-open areas probably help with that, right?
Well, yeah. So I would say, the game's first planet is not like massive. It's a good size, and there's some room for exploration. But I mean, you really are just kind of dropped in and been like, all right, here's your main objective. You can go do that if you want, or you have all these other points of interest on your map that you can go explore. And it usually is just like some type of battle, like that is most of what you're doing in these objectives. But occasionally there are things like, like traditional Mario things, like you've got your red coin challenge, you just run around and collect your red coins, and so there's some traditional Mario stuff in there too. But yeah, once you get past the game's first planet and you hit the second one, which is Pristine Peaks. Now I played part of that in the preview session I went to in San Francisco, and at the time it was like, oh, it's not massive, but I realized when I was reviewing the game that I had only seen a small part of it, and the planet was so big that I had to be consistently checking my map to make sure I wasn't lost and I wasn't overlooking something. There's a lot.
That is very exciting to hear.
Yeah, it's. I think part of it is just because of how well they weave things together. There's, I know it's the overused word, but there really is a lot of verticality. You really do have to be like, oh, there's something up there, but I can't find the path to get up there, so I need to go explore, and it's really cool. So I think your concerns, Dennis, I think if you play this, you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, that sounds great, and everything I've seen from it just looks really fantastic. I mean, the charm and the production value, it seems like they really outdid themselves this time around.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But yeah, full review is still on the way. Like I said, I'm only about halfway through it, and that's with me sinking about 20 hours into it. So yeah, quite a bit more. But I will have a review up on the site soon, hopefully. So stay tuned for that. And that is our show for the week. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. This has been episode 29 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. If you like what you hear, please spread the word. Our show is on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, you name it. And we are also on YouTube if you prefer. You may already be watching on YouTube. Thank you for your support. And that's all we got for you. We'll be back at you next week with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo.